So, good evening, folks. Sorry for the delay. So, the first thing we do is a workshop. So, this is not the formal meeting. And we think this will run from 7 to 8, but we're no guarantees. And then we'll run the regular meeting at 8. And let's get started because we've got 10 items that we want to get through. So the first 3, and I'm going to do 1, 2, and 5 together, all involve the police chief who is here, right? Okay, so I want to do a swearing in of Thomas Durkin as police detective sergeant, a swearing in of Kelvin Gray as police sergeant, and then also the appointment of Isabella Nocerina, the position of police officer. You want to come up and do quick intros, and then we'll do swearing-ins. And all right, well, you ready for me up there yet or not? Why don't you do quick intros, and then I'll come up.
Recording in progress.
All right, yep. Just do quick intros, and I'll be right up.
So real quick, I think we're starting with Detective Sergeant Durkin. He was voted on. He's been in the position now for about 2 weeks. He started with us as a intern, then a dispatcher, then was hired as a patrolman. He's moved up through the ranks. In the 2 weeks, he's been doing a fantastic job, so we're excited to have him sworn in and be fully official. And then for patrol sergeant, we're going to be swearing in Sergeant Kelvin Gray. He's been in the position a couple of days now, but he's shown leadership throughout his career, so we're, again, very happy to have him in a new position.
Okay, all right, let me come on up. Okay, come on up so you can hear me, and then, so you know what? You got people taking pictures behind you. Why don't you come right about here and kind of turn slightly? There you go. Not all the way.
No, they can get the photos.
Yeah,
I take the worst
when we're done.
photos.
Yep.
Let them
Why
take
don't you do it that way? All right. So give me your raise your right hand, and then I state your name.
I, Thomas Durkin.
I, Thomas Durkin. All right. Do solemnly swear
Do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and I will faithfully discharge the duties
of Police Detective Sergeant, City of Beacon,
of Police Detective Sergeant, City of Beacon,
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
All right. Congratulations. You sign there. And then we do pictures. All the important stuff.
Perfect.
All right. Do you want one?
No, the PBA has
All right,
better
so-
pictures than I
All right.
do.
We are,
And they have them
before we
posted
get
before
started,
we
Greg,
even
you
did.
want to get the chief in here on the other side? That's he's the important one, not you. All right. Can I call you Sergeant already? All right, Sergeant, you ready?
Yes, I am.
All right. Give me your right hand. All right. I, Kelvin Gray,
I, Kelvin Gray,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
louder so I can hear it,
and I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and I will faithfully discharge
the duties of Police Sergeant, City of Beacon, Police Sergeant,
the police sergeant of the city
City of Beacon, to the according to the best of my ability.
Was that from Paloma? So Ben Paloma can't hear.
Yeah, no, that's the problem.
We really appreciate you being here. Thank you.
We have,
Okay. Oh, wait, Calvin, come back. Got a sign. Forgot already. It's like the only thing I have to do is sign and make you sign.
can you get them
I know.
on these boards without the smart board? Pete, can you do the monitors in the room without the smart board?
Thank you.
Yep. All right. Yeah. All right, so I got the chief here. We're also going to give you an intro for one new officer we're trying to hire. So you take us through that, Chief?
Sure. So the next thing that we're excited about is that we have a new police officer candidate with us, and I'm recommending Isabella Nocerino for the position of police officer. Ms. Nocerino is a longtime resident of the city of Beacon and a graduate of our public schools. For several years in a row, she participated in our Beacon Youth Police Academy, and throughout her high school years, she also participated as a police cadet in the town of Fishkill Police Department. She actually eventually rose to the rank of cadet chief, and so when I was lieutenant, we would joke that she outranked me. Ms. Nocerino worked as a dispatcher for the town of East Fishkill Police Department, and in August 2022, we hired her as a full-time evening shift dispatcher here in Beacon. She's worked hard in that position while simultaneously participating in the cadet program and working on her college degree. In July, she completed that degree, earning a bachelor's in public affairs with a concentration in emergency management from SUNY Empire. Ms. Nocerino has passed our rigorous background check, which includes examination of candidate's personal history, a psychological evaluation, and a polygraph exam. Further, she's already been a reliable employee from the city of Beacon for over 2 years, and I believe she will be an asset to our department.
Okay. Council, this is workshop. Any quick questions for the chief before we keep going?
I think this was in our memo, but just to remind, she already took the civil service exam?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, for the position of police officer, we only hire off the exam because so many people take it.
Thank you for clarifying.
No problem.
All right. Is she here or is she on
Yes.
duty?
She's actually, we took her away from her shift for a few minutes.
At least say hi.
Hello.
Yeah. Nice to see you other than down in dispatch.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, Chief pretty much hit all the points. My name is Isabella. I'm a longtime resident. I'm a graduate of City of Beacon High School as well as Rombout and then South Avenue. I just recently. It's all right. So I just recently completed my degree in public affairs with a concentration in emergency management. I've learned a lot within the City of Beacon Police Department, and I enjoy where I work, and I'm very excited to serve my community.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So Chief, we'll see you at the end of council meeting, right? Yep. Thank you. All right.
So Mayor, I do have to on the phone because we're having the issues.
Oh, okay. Oh, I should do roll call. I apologize. Let's do that. Give a minute for the audience to settle down, and then we'll do that. Sorry.
We have swearing in of the two officers and then just
So, let me do roll call. I observe those physically present as Molly, Jeff, Amber, Dan, Lee. I see the city attorney and the city administrator. Welcome back. And I see Paloma online, remote. And Pam is on vacation and is excused. Okay? So that takes care of that. Let's keep working our way through this. The next item is a presentation of the City of Beacon Climate Action Plan for the city itself. And I think you're going to take us through a short version of that, and then we might have a couple of questions, and then we'll keep going.
Yes, let's test that. Paloma, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you
Yeah.
hear me now?
Yeah,
Yes.
you're there.
Okay, we're there. And Ben, you were going to be part of this. Okay, so Ben was very involved in this along with Faye and Mary, so he's going to co-present tonight.
Okay.
All right, well,
Why don't you
I might
start
as well
up?
get started.
Thank you.
So hi, my name is Mary Lambert. I am with the Hudson Valley Regional Council, and thank you so much for having me tonight. I'm honored to be speaking with you. I am the coordinator of a program called the Climate Action Planning Institute, and for 16 months I've worked with Faye and with Ben and with the Conservation Advisory Council here in Beacon, along with 8 other municipalities as part of a collaborative process affectionately known as the Duchess Cappy program. I want to emphasize that it is a lengthy and data-driven process that requires considerable effort at data gathering, analysis, forecasting, research, and of course writing. And I just wanted to congratulate Faye and Ben, as well as the whole team that did a fabulous job at producing a government operations greenhouse gas inventory and a government operations climate action plan. The program was split into 2 parts. For the first 8 months, we did the inventory. The second 8 months, we did the climate action plan. We did forecasting, reduction measure modeling, and then, of course, we drafted this plan. So I will hand it over for Faye and Ben to talk a little bit more about it. But again, I just wanted to thank them for their very impressive work. They were thorough and professional and very thoughtful in their goal setting and recommended strategies and implementation plan. So thank you very much.
Hello. Nice to see everybody. I am setting my timer, and I'm going to stick to 10 minutes, even if I have to speed, so that you can keep going. Okay.
You can always say fewer words instead of accelerating the pace of the words. We'll
That'll
probably
be
hear it
preferred.
better.
Yes, okay. So, as Mary said, thank you so much. We're presenting the plan for reducing the emissions from our government operations by 2030. And you can follow me, right? Okay. So quickly on why this is important to people in Beacon. I mean, it's very obvious, I think. I brought a little bit of a visual aid. I don't know if it's going to work on camera, but and it's almost accurate as well. Okay, so the statistic on the slide relates to a stretch of coastline from a part of Virginia to part of Massachusetts. And this sea level rise is among the highest in the world. It's more than 3 times the global average. That was as of 2018. And we experience degrees of climate impacts every time we have heavy rain. We see how it puts our infrastructure at risk. So from a municipal operations perspective, we've had damage to train tracks, roads, the wastewater treatment plant dealing with inundation. The rise in sea level and the increase in precipitation, they're all linked to how much, I'm going to slow down a little bit, and this is something I think everyone knows, I'm just putting a little recap on this. It's all linked to how much fossil fuel we burn in the US and around the world, because that traps heat in the atmosphere and leads to the changes in conditions that we have begun to experience here in Beacon. The poster that I have here and on the slide, this is a finding by the Department of Environmental Conservation that most of Beacon is a disadvantaged community. And what I like about this designation is that it puts environmental and social conditions together and shows how they interact. For example, hotter weather bringing the need for cooling and other activities that demand energy have a financial cost, thus low-income households are at more of a disadvantage. That's just one example. So what can city government do about it? What should we be doing about it? We can do things like providing reliable, diversified energy sources, relieving local air pollution, and contributing less to the global atmospheric change that increases these conditions. How are we going to take this on in our municipal operations?
Yes. Hello. You all know who I am, but for those of you online who don't, my name is Ben Swanson. I'm the secretary to Mayor Kiriakou, and I was also one of the city's liaisons on this project with Faye. And we worked together for many months, as you've heard from Mary and Faye already, on this process. And today we're bringing you the Climate Action Plan, which is the second component that Mary outlined for you. And just to kind of set your expectations for what this plan is it's a measure of how we want to reduce government as a municipal operation emissions over the next coming years between now and 2030. So it's not measuring the communities, it's not measuring activities of cities that don't have quantifiable emissions. It's looking purely at emission activities and how we can reduce them to our goals by 2030. So we'll go through a bunch of actions that we've looked at. The starting point for this was the inventory that we did and prior inventories we've done as well, thanks to Faye and then also Eleanor, who's here in the audience, who took on a number of those inventories herself in the role that Faye's in now. So without belaboring everything on the slide, that's kind of what this is designed to do.
These are our can you go to the logos? Thank you. These are the supporters of our process. This is a summary of the stakeholder outreach. This is in the report that you have. So I'm going to keep going, if that's all right. Quick reminder about what we discussed in January for the inventory. This is taking stock of our part in burning fossil fuels and creating GHG emissions, so we know our starting point. So these pies, each slice is a sector of government operations, and some things we found to be the leading contributors are the big blue slice. That's mostly methane from the closed landfill at Dennings Point. That was just the landfill emissions of methane is 34% of our annual emissions. Another big piece is the equipment used to treat wastewater. That's in purple. The city's vehicle fleet, which is still largely gas-powered, that's 29%. And then the yellow slice, that's our buildings, and that is mainly driven by the use of gas and oil for heating and hot water. So then we forecasted to see how, if we do nothing differently, how it will look by 2030. And that's this graph that does not move much. The reduction by 2030 would be 8% because of things like decarbonization happening beyond us, changes in fuel standards, that sort of thing. So that 8%, we're going to come back in a minute, but that's not sufficient to meet the climate targets that have been set for Beacon by City Council. And this is another way of looking at the business as usual forecast. This would be by 2060. Our climate in the Poughkeepsie area is projected to be most close to the current climate in a place called Ola, Arkansas by 2060. So it's several degrees warmer and several percentage points wetter than our current conditions. Okay, into what we're doing in the plan. We aligned with the state's law. It calls for 40% of our 1990 level emissions to be reduced by 2030. City Council in 2020 said, let's do it a little faster, as fast as we can. And so then we took that on, but we used a 2020 level emission, 2021 level emissions, because we have that data, so why not use the latest? So, since we've already moved from 1990 to 2021, the amount we have left to go is 31%. The state has found that it's progressed 9% of its goal. I can explain that a little bit more if needed, but I'll keep going for now. Okay, here's an overview of some of the things that we propose to do. Some have already taken place. So in 2023 and 2024, I'm not showing those here, but we replaced two cars with EVs. We nearly completed the firehouse conversion, and that has an impact I'm going to show you in a minute due to the geothermal system. And I'll just say that we have other actions that we hope to do, but we have included just what we could model. And that way we know we have an evidence-based path to lowering our emissions to the target level or even better. So a couple of examples. This is the impact of expanding the firehouse by 60% size-wise. Even while doing that, the emissions go down this much, as you see in the graph, because of the use of a geothermal system for heating and cooling. So that's very positive. And then this one looks even more dramatic. This is the removal of the majority of methane emissions from the landfill. And that's due to a technique called biofiltration. It's like a series of mulch beds, basically, attached to each methane vent. So as a whole, these are all our strategies piled up together. And you can see that by gradually electrifying the vehicle fleet, replacing oil and gas with heat pumps, and mitigating methane from the closed landfill, we can surpass the 2020 goal. That's the line in red. Mary mentioned we did a lot of modeling. We did 25 strategies in total in the course of sort of calculating what the most impactful ones would be emissions-wise, and we selected those that were impactful and feasible, and we could do them sort of all at once. So according to our forecasting, and I haven't done much of a disclaimer, but it is just forecasting. Hopefully all will go according to plan. If if all these strategies work as forecasted, our emissions would fall by 48.36% of their 2021 levels. That is much better than the 31% target set by City Council in 2020. So instead of our 2021 level of 3,081 metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent, we end up with 1,490 metric tons. Ben, would you like to talk about monitoring?
Thank you, Faye, for going through all the hard stuff. So this slide is kind of talking about what is next with the climate monitoring. It's not just a one-stop situation. We've made a report. The idea is to, going forward, measure our progress towards the goals we've set. And that's part of the design of this plan. It's not in itself a binding document. It's a flexible and document that can adapt over time, and that will be based on, as we do ongoing evaluations of what's feasible, ongoing evaluations of where the technology has improved, that we can have really high impact actions, and also where grant funding is. Faye talked about the biofilters. That is something that's completely being done because we partnered with HVRC, and Mary will be taking lead on this project. We're very excited about the biofiltration project. It's very high impact, and it's going through a grant program. So the design of this plan is kind of a snapshot. We're looking at what we've done so far, what we think will be happening between now and 2030. We are looking at what the inventories have measured so far, but it's naturally a very, it's a process that we'll evaluate every so often, as you'll see here, 2-4 years, and we'll see where we're at, and we'll adjust it accordingly.
And our last slide is just a thank you. You heard my timer go off, so I'm going to leave. But these are our, these are who we're very thankful for, including people in this room. And it was very much a team effort. Thank you, everybody. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Now, I know we've all had versions of it to look at. We've all provided input already. Any kind of final comments or whatever you want to provide here, and then we'll just keep going.
I had one maybe question or comment, and I apologize for not getting this to you sooner, but it was on the EV reduction. How many electric vehicles, or how many vehicles, what is the size of our vehicle fleet today?
It's 92, right? 92?
Okay. Yeah. Did we consider whether we wanted to be more aggressive at the tail end of that? Because that number shrinks every time you take 5%, and so 5% 5 years from now is going to be a much smaller number than it is today. So did we think about whether we wanted to be more aggressive at the tail end of that, or if that even pace was the right pace to be at?
This might be a question Faye is well positioned to answer.
That 5%, because of the size of the fleet, is already a step up from the rate we're sort of used to replacing cars at.
Okay.
So it's kind of ambitious when we start off. I think that's a good point, that that number gets less ambitious as we go.
Yeah.
And maybe that's an area we would be able to increase.
Okay.
We were just trying to be really conservative in what we see, what we could add up, in a conservative way, but we can always go beyond that. Do you want to add
That's
anything?
fair. I mean, as you guys said, this is something that we should revisit, and I know that we're kind of trying to track through some of the changing technologies in this space too, so maybe there are more opportunities for us when we look at this 2 years from now, and that number can be a little bit bigger, but that's a totally fair answer. Thank you.
And to the extent we can, we'll use this as a baseline above which we go. So every time we purchase a new vehicle, one of the first things they're asked is, do you really need it?
Yeah.
And the second one is, can we do this electric? And in some cases, like patrol cars, police patrol cars are hybrid, which are a lot better than the last generation.
Sure, yeah.
But they're not, we don't have a real off-the-shelf police package vehicle yet for EVs. But Faye evaluates vehicles for us. We try to think about, okay, we have this type of truck. Do we really need the next step up? So we'll be trying to speed this implementation as much as we can.
Okay, great. Thank you. I appreciate the context.
Thank you so much for all this really great and important work. We've discussed this, but I'm curious about the context in which this sits. This is, to emphasize again, this is government operations, which is the purview of what you're intent to focus on, but do we have just a contextual understanding of how it sits within the broader, within the community-wide impact that we, just community members might be interested in hearing? And I know you worked with ICLEI, which is a great resource. Actually had Caroline Dickey present at a greenhouse gas workshop I completed for BARD this past week. And we were talking about transitional strategies, how you could expand from government operations, what the role could be, what kind of insights could be provided through a report. So just curious for your reflections both on the baseline and next steps.
So firstly, to echo your kind words for ICLEI, they were invaluable. Carolyn was also one of our presenters regularly when we had our routine meetings, and we owe a lot of thanks to her individually. As for how this situates within the broader context of the city, you're exactly right, and maybe a lot of people don't know this. This is a very small portion of the emissions of the greater Beacon community. I don't know, what was it, 2% or less, right? So it's a very small portion. This is an important step that the city can take to evaluate our own operations, but if you're looking at it in the broad context, it's certainly part of a much bigger puzzle.
I would add briefly that by going first on the municipal side, we were able to sort of do some of the legwork that could be then used in a broader process, and we sort of figured out the cycle. So we inventory, we forecast, we identify the target to reduce it by, and then we identify strategies. So we can kind of offer that as an exercise, and by also figuring out how to make some of the transitions within the government operations, perhaps that would be helpful on the broader scale as well. But it's a very good point that it's a small subset of emissions.
It's a really fantastic vehicle, though, and as we've discussed, that there's a number of engagement opportunities with the community and some additional planning work that could be done, resilience planning, for example, which is not, again, within the purview, but there's very important impacts that the government can have for the broader community in dealing with resilience issues, with heat impacts, not least of all the things that we'll face. So I just, again, strongly encourage that we revisit the impact analysis, that we look to take advantage of every stakeholder engagement, community engagement effort that we can through this process so that people realize that this is a springboard to do more important work.
Cool. Okay. Very appreciative. Any other final remarks? So just keep going, but this is great. The only thing I would add is the other thing that affects the pace at which we do things is our ability to finance, and the kinds of grants that we can find, or the advantages of the grants that we do as a result of being a climate smart community are just an important piece of the puzzle, right? Because those grants allow us to move faster. So I just want to thank you for your work on getting those too. So appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you all.
Great job, thank you.
All right. I think, Chris, are you going to do Coleman Lawrence as a heavy motor
Yes.
equipment operator? Great.
So we have an open position for HMEO in the Highway Department, heavy machine equipment operator, motor equipment operator. Coleman has been with us for just over a year, and we had several people that applied for the position. Now we do a skills test to see how people actually do operating the equipment, and he excelled at that. So the superintendent of streets has recommended Coleman for promotion to HMEO. And I do appreciate Sarah Morris for implementing this skills test, because it takes away any any accusation that we're not doing things based on what people know, as opposed to how long they've been here or who they know.
And is Coleman currently an employee with the Highway Department?
Yes, and he's been a great employee. And then when we tested him, he jumped in every piece of equipment and could operate it. And they've done quite a sophisticated little test. It's evolved since we first started, like about a year and a half, 2 years ago.
Okay. Any other comments? All right, onward. So we have a set of ramps on accessible curbs.
I'll lead and, okay.
Nick, are you going to start, or is Chris?
I'll just give some background, and then Nick can fill in any details.
Okay.
So each year when we do milling and paving with our CHIPS money, which is federal money that comes through DOT and has a requirement for doing ADA improvements, we have to redo the curb ramps in those particular areas. So we have 33 curb ramps that we're doing this year at 19 different intersections, and we put that out to bid. We had a great bid response with 6 responses, which is good. One of the responders had really not done their math correctly, and it came in with a very high number. The low bidder that we're proposing would be Sunup Construction Corporation. Nick can talk about a little bit of the detail on how we got there. And we are just under what the engineer's estimate was. We had estimated 230 to 250,000. That bid came in at 219,140. And Nick, do you want to just maybe go over? This is in your packet. It's in Nick's letter, but it's worth us talking about.
Absolutely. So New York State law requires that a municipality award a contract to a lowest responsible bidder. So it's a two-step process, lowest bidder as well as a responsible bidder. Responsible is not necessarily defined in New York State General Municipal Law. Case law defines it for us through that they have the experience, they have the equipment, they have, for example, prior references that they've established that they will honor the contract that's being included in the bid packet, as well as they have the ability to do the work. You want to hire someone to put a new roof if they've never done roofing work before, don't establish that they could do a roof. And so in this case, the contractor who was the lowest bidder was determined to be not to be the lowest responsible bidder. So the lowest bidder was Raja Contractors, whose bid was approximately, it was $219,140, it was $20,000 less than the one for Sunup, so about a $20,000 difference. Initially, the bid packet was not in accordance with the bid requirements. The city could waive those requirements if it deems it to be appropriate, such as, for example, a form, the Iran Divestment Act form, was signed, but it was notarized, but it wasn't signed. However, we're not rejecting because of that. They're also required to provide references. They didn't provide the correct information, so the references could be followed up. They were also contacted to get information on those references, as well as provide other clarification, including that they understood it was a prevailing wage job, and that they would honor the contract, and that they acknowledged they were the lowest bidder and proceed. Staff reached out to them diligently via phone call on several occasions. They did not provide any email contact information. They were sent a letter via regular mail. They were also sent a letter via FedEx. They ultimately did receive and acknowledge and contact the city after receiving the FedEx, and they were given time to provide that information. They didn't object to the amount of time in which they had to provide it. In fact, said they would provide it by the time the city had requested it. They provided that information late, and it was incomplete. Our office then sent them a letter that's included in the packet. We've not heard anything from them since, and it was our office's opinion that based upon their conduct, based upon this packet that they submitted, and based upon reviewing the instructions to bidders, that said the city reserves the right to reject it if a bidder doesn't comply with the bid instructions, as well as that the city would be checking to make sure they are qualified without having the ability to go through their references and complete that check, as well as get additional information to verify the references. The city was not able to confirm that they were responsible bidders.
And the city did call one that they said that they were working for, and they hadn't even started the project. And the person was like, yeah, we hear they're trying to break into the market. So that wasn't reassuring in any way.
Right.
We have a timeline on which we have to get this work done, and just the fact that we couldn't even get a hold of them kind of spoke volumes about what kind of entity we're dealing with.
And Nick, just for the sake of those listening in, because it's been, I think it's the first kind of lowest bidder that we've determined does not qualify. Can you
Correct.
give a little voiceover for the public about why we're going through all these steps? Why? Because some people listening might be like, someone doesn't call you back, you just say next.
Right.
there's some
So under New
extra
York State law,
requirements, yeah.
for this type of work, public works, the city has to go out to bid. We can't just call someone up and negotiate a price. And under the state law, we have to award that contract to the lowest responsible bidder. And we just can't, as you say, reject them outright. We have to follow the law and go through the process. And we don't have any discretion there unless we can establish that they have not followed the requirements that were part of the bid instruction packet. So while we have some discretion, it is only after we've completed our due diligence and that they failed to comply with it. That answers your question.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody good?
So who gets the bid?
So then we automatically have to go to the second lowest bidder. which is Sunup Construction. They've done work for the city before, so the city has previously verified their references. The city has its own experience with them, so the city satisfies that they are responsible. They've done this type of work before. And also, they've also confirmed that they understood its prevailing wage and will honor the contract in their bid and the contract terms. So we treated them in the same manner as the first lowest bidder.
Okay.
And we can't reach into Molly's point, we have to go with the second lowest bidder.
Great.
Okay. All right, so we also have bids for the exterior stair replacement. That's the one right down to the police station?
Yeah, it's both sets.
Okay. So from Main Street down to Beekman through the police parking lot. And
Yes.
Chris, you'll take us through that?
Yes, so this has been on the back burner since 2000 when it was approved in the capital program. We're finally getting to it. We had patched it for some years to try to hold it off. It's well beyond patching at this point. So this bid received 8 bid proposals. And they were, there's quite a range, but the low bid was below our engineer's estimate, coming in at $164,051.68. The name of the bidder was MCT at Service Inc., and they're out of Yonkers, New York. Our engineer did confirm that they understand this is a prevailing wage job. They confirmed their bid. There was a slight discrepancy in the math. They confirmed our number, and we're proposing to award them the contract.
Chris, do you know yet, is the plan to widen the stairs, just replace the stairs? Is it known yet exactly what the design is?
It's just to replace them in kind.
Replace them.
Yeah.
And do you know if we agree to award this bid, roughly when the work would start? I know a lot of people use those stairs now between, especially out on the way to and from the train station. So just
We would try
roughly.
to get this done in September if we could.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. And to the extent we can, they'll have to work detours around and put up signage saying, just use the other sidewalk to go around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, any questions?
No.
Okay. The next one is we want to talk about the Climate Smart grant program. And Ben, do you want to do that?
Yeah, I can do that. I'm over the speaker now, if that's all right.
Yeah, but we don't hear you well.
We can't hear you, Ben. You're low. Ben?
Of course, we can't hear it all now.
Oh, no.
There he is.
There he is.
It's Oz.
All right.
The great Oz.
There's an easy way to fix that. Can you all hear me now?
Yep.
So I'll keep this short. The city is already, as you're well aware, through various resolutions over the past couple of years, taking on an upcoming project at the Melzinga Dam and Reservoir. It's a major rehabilitation project estimated in the neighborhood of $3.9 million to do. That funding has already been authorized in the capital program and also through bond resolutions, I believe, last year. Thanks to Faye, we found out that there was a Climate Smart Communities grant program through the New York State DEC for up to $2 million. We submitted this project as we believe a good fit for their project type that they're looking for. They're looking for projects that help with climate adaptation measures, and this project indeed will help withstand more frequent and heavier rainfall events onto critical infrastructure for drinking water, and then also for the transportation network that runs along the river. The spillway actually crosses over Route 90 and the Metro North train tracks. So we believe it's a very important project. Faye put in a lot of hours the last week getting the application in. One aspect of the application is we need a resolution from all of you authorizing us to apply. So should you decide to go forward with that in the voting meeting, that will be what it's for.
Thank you.
And I just want to thank Ben and Faye, who did a lot of work last week to get this from zero to done. So thank you both.
Yeah, it was a bit of a last-minute application, but we believe it's a very strong application.
And we're ready to go. This is shovel-ready. We now have DEC approval. We were going to bid it late winter, early spring for next year. This is perfect timing
Yeah.
for us.
What's the timing for the decisions on the grant?
Not sure.
Okay. And that aligns with your,
Yeah.
the the project? Okay.
Yeah, so we're gonna set up the bid, if we get the grant, we'll input into the bid the conditions of the grant. So there's a couple things we wouldn't do if we didn't get the grant, and then it's a little cheaper.
Okay.
But we need to do it either way. We need to raise the spillway capacity because the storms we're having
Yeah.
are already impacting that high hazard dam.
Cool.
Yep,
Yeah.
and the only other thing I would add is that you'll see that there's some matching funding language in the resolution itself, and that's because of the tract it's in is a disadvantaged community, as Faye had that map before. The tract where Melsing is also in one of those tracts, so there's a 20% match, which is why you'll see that there's a figure that you're affirmatively authorizing.
But
for the
we've
match.
already authorized that through the capital program.
Exactly.
So we're good.
Yep.
So I would just add that I just want to thank both Faye and Ben for just pulling it together. I know Mickey was involved, Susan was involved
Ed.
as well, Ed as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very involved. Ed,
And-
we had a lot of questions for Ed.
Yeah, so very appreciative of that. I also note that we had to contact DEC, and the way that we meet the deadline is we have to approve this resolution tonight, right? So it's a critical deadline. And it's, as we all kind of looked at it, this looks like good money, so this is a good opportunity for us. All right?
Nope, but definitely see it on the climate adaptation, very important. But I got to ask, the dream team of grant-writing people on the heels of the Climate Action Plan, are there plans in place for a Clean Energy Communities grant, too? That was kind of, my mind cannot help but go there when I saw this. What
Faye
time
said
frame
many
are we thinking of
grants.
it? What time frame are we thinking for those?
Do you want to come up, Faye? Thanks for staying.
You asked about the Clean Energy Communities grants, right? We're partway through applying for all the money that we are and will become eligible for in this round. And we're aiming to get everything earned and applied for by October, at which point we receive sort of less bonus money for each amount. So
And how much are
we're
we?
in the middle of that.
How much are you projecting ballpark that?
Around 300,000 in total. I actually think it's higher than that. We get 50% more than a non-DAC community for every project that we locate in one of those DAC zones.
Good. And we're going to hear about the purpose of those grants sometime in the not-too-distant future?
I think this was going to be the subject of another presentation, so as not to go on too long
Hey, I'm
tonight.
just, just begs the question. I'm sure there's interested parties who'd like to know. So, time frame, you think we might hear about these grants?
Well, the one grant we're putting toward, the one that's up 175?
That's next, yep.
We would allocate that towards the DPW highway garage. I'm trying to get that fully designed and out to bid so that we can do it this fall. So that's a 175 kilowatt system on the highway garage. We're also now vetting whether and how we can do solar on the new part of the firehouse. So I have the architect working up a proposal. I just haven't, we haven't nailed it down yet. We are somewhat looking at the roof down at the wastewater treatment plant. So all of these grants we're trying to put towards solar so that we keep getting closer to 100% locally produced renewable energy.
Okay. Next one, thank you.
Thank you.
Is we got a bunch of bonds we're going to authorize issuance. And Nick, you want to take us through those?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes. So when a municipality wishes to fund its projects, whether it's a purchase of equipment, a pipe rehabilitation project of the such, it doesn't go out to a bank, borrow money or a line of credit, rather it issue bonds. And the New York State finance law sets forth what that process is. The first step is to authorize a resolution authorizing the issuance of those bonds, which is subject to a permissive referendum. So that's the first step. So the city's bond council has prepared resolutions. There are 4 of them in your packet tonight. They are more or less all the same, with the distinctions being for the amount and the type, as well as the what's called the useful life. You can only bond for the period of the useful life of that project. For example, for a purchase of highway department equipment, it's a 15-year period of the payback. And the law then the resolution sets forth what those periods of useful life is, as well as the notice requirements, and that it's subject to a permissive referendum. The 4 bonds, each of which needs to be voted upon separately, is a $1 million water main replacement bond, a $700,000 for highway equipment, $1,304,000 for wastewater treatment plant improvements, and $1,741,450 for fire truck. Because it is an action being taken by the council under the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act, you're required to consider this from an environmental standpoint. New York State says that these types of projects, purchase of equipment and pipe projects in kind, are type 2 and therefore exempt from SECR. That is also set forth in the resolution. So, and all of these are for projects that you've discussed before and that are within your capital improvement
That's
program.
Okay. Any questions?
Yeah, why is the, I think it's the wastewater project not subject to permissive referendum, but the other three are? Is that just to do with New York State law?
No, all four of them are. So that is not correct. We'll correct that for the voting packet.
Okay. And then, just generally, when we vote on this, are we voting on these bonds will be issued right away, or is this a requirement so that there is the option to issue a bond at some point?
Right, so these are either, you're authorizing either the issuance of bonds or bands, the bond anticipation notes for short-term notes that may eventually, when you get enough of them, get offered in a larger bond offering. So this is authorizing the city's finance director with the city administrator's input to go out and start the next process. When that occurs and when they actually go out for the bonding and secure and draw down upon that is all determined by the finance department.
And we would probably do bands, bond anticipation notes early, because then we can pay them down more quickly and wait for rates to go down. The rates right now are the highest they've been in some years. We're hopeful that turns around a little bit before we go out for long-term bonding.
Great, thank you.
And I'm sorry, and I'll correct the wastewater treatment. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions on this one? All right, last item for workshop is a proposed amendment to the Fishkill Creek Development Zone. And Nick, you want to take us through how you wrote it up?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, so this concerns the Fishkill Creek Development District and a proposed zoning change that came out of our discussion about 248 Tyranda Avenue project. So the current code requires that for a project in that zoning district, they're required to have both a residential component and a non-residential component. The concept plan and the site plan for the 248 Tyranda Avenue project included that. There was a presentation made by the applicant requesting a modification to that concept plan to remove the non-residential component. The law requires that any certificates of occupancy not be issued until the non-residential project is also built out at the same time. That was done to encourage and to make sure that both projects were being, aspects were being constructed simultaneously. The applicant has indicated they are ready to have the COs issued for the residential component of a project, and they've submitted that they have not been able to find anyone who is interested in using or renting the non-commercial component. So with this local law, it's only addressing and granting the city council the right, but not the obligation, to waive that requirement that the non-residential be constructed prior to the residential, so that for good cause shown, if you determine that, you could allow and waive that requirement, so therefore the residential COs could be issued before the non-residential. And so as a matter of process, if you all you'd be doing tonight is introducing the local law and scheduling the hearing, and you have a public hearing scheduled for your meeting on the 19th for the 248 Tyranda Avenue concept plan modification. So this would be scheduled for the 19th and be considered by the planning board at their next meeting and referred to the county as well.
So on this one, I wasn't here last week, and I just want to state prior to the public hearing that I am not comfortable. The applicant didn't provide any evidence, really. It was simply anecdotal, I tried. And so I just want to go on record as saying that I am not comfortable with what has been provided to us as proof that the concept plan should be revised However, I am okay with the thought of issuing residential COs so that housing can come online, that the person has the ability to make some money out of what they've invested, but that I do not think the applicant has met any burden of proof for their assertion that this project will fail. And I would expect them to do better.
I totally second that. I was going to make the same exact statement.
Yeah. It's simply not worth my time to discuss it based on I tried. Like, I would expect to see, here's what I did from a marketing perspective, or I worked with this broker. Like, it just simply was not anywhere near sufficient to be worth my time to
Yes,
discuss.
so I actually did convey that to the applicant's project team, that they need to provide more written substantiation of
Yeah.
what their efforts were, because those were sort of the gist I was getting from comments made at the last meeting, that they said it, but they did, and that was from the applicants, but they didn't provide any substantiation behind it.
Thank you for
So I
providing
appreciate
that
you.
feedback.
Yes,
And I just wanted to go on the record, so I hope they are hearing that feedback very directly.
yes, thank you.
I also missed the last meeting and had the same feelings, and the way I wanted to raise it is, how do we define good cause shown? You know, there didn't seem to be good cause shown previously, in the previous meeting, so.
Yeah.
Yep. I will.
But fine with what's on the table for today. Again, I do agree fundamentally with bringing the housing online, allowing this person to continue, they've made an investment, I get it, so I'm okay with what's on the table today, but I hope that they are planning to provide more substantive evidence.
Thank you for those comments. I'll make sure that message gets back to them.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is a question of why city council? Why wouldn't we delegate this to the planning board? They probably got the site plan, and they're probably in a better position to assess, the validity of the good cause. So I'm just wondering, well, shouldn't we just give it to the planning board? That's my only comment.
Well, my question about this law in particular is, so the 248 Tioronda, if I recall correctly, went to the zoning board to do the 2 residential projects and to postpone the commercial project, or to not do the commercial project. Is that right?
No,
Didn't they go to
not
the ZBA before, saying that because of hardship that they wanted the third property?
Not that I'm aware of, no. They haven't gone to the planning board or the zoning board. The only board.
Like a year ago, more than a year ago.
No, they went to get modifications to the Greenway Trail.
Okay.
I'm not aware that they've gone to the ZBA, applied for any variances.
Okay, I thought they had claimed a financial hardship about the third building that was commercial. Maybe I'll go back and I'll talk to a couple of zoning board
Yeah, and I'll
members
confirm that as well. I'm not aware
and
of
get to that, because it feels like this is what we're doing now, what the zoning board had not done then. But if it didn't actually make it to the ZBA, I'll review that. But my concern here would be that we consider, at least in the current law, we consider commercial space to be creating jobs, and jobs to be a public benefit. And if I were to build 2 buildings and then come back to city council or to the planning board and say, actually, I just want the certificate of occupancy for the 2 residential properties now, you could never build the third one unless there's some mechanism that compels them to start doing that third building. But they could get a certificate of occupancy on the 2 buildings and then miss out, and then not fulfill the public benefit, right?
That's correct, yes.
So why would we want to put that into writing?
Well, I think that's the second question, right? There's 2 questions. One, do you want to allow the COs to be issued for the residential? Second question is, do you want to waive the non-residential requirement? This law only addresses waiving the residential, and your point is right, that non-residential may not be constructed.
Yeah, but on the other hand, by allowing it to come through in part, not only as Amber has said, we get housing units online, but also importantly, we start to get tax revenue as well. And if we leave them connected and the project fails, we get nothing. So, that's the trade-off we have. Now, I was the one who actually requested the original change to up the commercial percentage when I was on council. And there the thinking was, we'd like to start going in that direction. But there's a little bit of leap of faith. It was the same sort of leap of faith that we made almost 30 years ago to start phasing out ground floor apartments on Main Street, because we said we have to take a leap. So similarly, we had made enough progress as a community that we thought, oh, not just a bedroom community, maybe we can be live-work. That's also a leap of faith, right? And that leap worked close to Main Street, right? We, in the Fishkill Creek Development Zone, the old highway garage is 80% commercial, if I got the number right. But as we move further away from Main Street, we had some concern of it may not work. And so, you know, for me, this is coming back and saying, okay, with sufficient evidence, you know, if it's not working, we should have some sort of adjustment and be thoughtful about it, right? And especially now, because we're looking for housing anyway, I think either way it's a public benefit, so.
Maybe then, since I think that the way that the law is written now, if I recall correctly, is that it's a certain percentage, 30% of the property has to be commercial or another public benefit approved by the city council. So maybe we could replace this with, you know, that we can give the certificate of occupancy as soon as the public benefit is fulfilled? Because we wouldn't want a project to go ahead without the public benefit.
So I think the zone is 25%.
25%, sorry.
And I don't think there is a specific public benefit in addition to the commercial component included, other than the inclusionary zoning of 10%.
Right, but public benefit is if they're going to provide less non-residential square footage may be granted by the city for voluntary and guaranteed inclusion of a public benefit. So the public benefit kicks in not in the original approval, but if they're providing less than what was granted by the city.
Right. So if they said, oh, sorry, we can't do 25% commercial, we'll say, all right, well, you have to do something else that benefits the public.
That's
and so
right.
what I'm saying is that here is that we just write it so that we will provide a certificate of occupancy as soon as the public benefit that is required is fulfilled.
Look, it can be written that way.
Yeah.
I think here there's been a request that, since the residential is ready, that those COs be issued. In the situation we're discussing, then, that would be a extended period of time until that public benefit, whatever it's determined to be.
And I would just say from a financial perspective to the city, you're only hurting the city by doing that. I mean, these are 64 units that are coming online. It will have a valuation somewhere between $6 and $10 million. I don't know what it's going to be assessed for. They're going to be using sewer and water. So, you know, again, we're investing a lot in infrastructure, and I'm concerned to hear a project is just going to languish. I'm also, at this point, concerned about them getting financing to finish. They don't have to put anything in the building, Dan, to meet the requirement of this. They could build an empty shell of a building that sits there for years, and they've done what they're supposed to. They're already up out of the ground. They have the basement and the first floor.
Right.
All they need to do is put up walls and a roof, and then they're done.
Right.
And that could sit empty. That's not a public benefit in my mind, but the tax benefits from this property coming online are substantial.
I'm not trying to, obviously, like, I want this to work for the city as well, and I don't want empty buildings languishing, but I also want to know that if we have requirements for public benefits in project, that we don't write into law a way of getting out of them. So what I'm concerned about is that, let's say it's not the commercial building, but let's say the Greenway Trail. They do the two buildings, they start collecting rents, and then never build the Greenway Trail. What compels them to do the Greenway Trail after they're already collecting rents on the two properties? Do we have?
In the Greenway Trails, we have that as a requirement that it be constructed by a certain time frame. In this case, they've constructed part of it, and they got an amendment to allow some modifications. But no, for the Greenway Trail, that is required to be built out before.
Okay, so a bad example, but let's say there's
But
a
it's the
requirement
point.
for a public,
But again,
a
I mean,
public
we just,
park,
the
you know?
other thing is the context, Dan, is we just had this whole conversation about needing more housing. They can bring another 30-something units of housing on, which gets 3 or more units of below market rent under our program.
If they build it.
Yeah, if they build it. I don't know, if you look around, there's some projects not advancing,
Oh,
and they're
it's-
running out of money. You only need to drive Eliza Street to take a look at that, or the old Citizens Bank. So we've got to be careful, like, there are markets here that we need to be cognizant of, and finance is one of them.
But I don't think the decision to make the change is lost by separating out the residential. They still have to come to the council and show good cause to allow the change. If there isn't sufficient public benefit, the answer is no.
Yeah.
Right?
But don't hold up the other buildings. I mean, that's just depriving us of tax benefits that we need to fix things in the city.
The mayor, you said that you were questioned why this wasn't going to the planning boards.
Yeah.
But isn't this the resolution that's part of the city council agenda, said it's a referring proposal local law number 8, et cetera, to the Dutchess County and the city of Beacon planning boards? Isn't that, so can you clarify what the next step is with that?
Sure.
Go ahead.
The mayor's comment was in the local law itself, we're allowing it to be the city council that makes the determination whether the requirement should be waived for good cause shown. The mayor suggested maybe that should be the planning board, the one who heard the site plan. So correct, the city council is adopting a resolution tonight referring the local law to the planning board, but the mayor's suggestion is in the substance of the local law, who should make that decision that the CO be waived, the planning board or the city council?
And so what decision will the planning board make when they receive the law? If we've made a decision tonight, what will they have to do in terms of providing?
Yep, so if the way this would work, the law gets referred to the planning board, city council then holds a public hearing. If the law gets implemented, only then would either the city council or the planning board make that determination. So the first step is we'll adopt the law. If the law gets adopted, someone's going to have to then determine should the COs be issued. The mayor suggested it be the planning board.
Yeah, so what we're going to refer to the planning board is either the one change that says the city council can make this choice, and then the alternative would be if we change to say it's the planning board's job, then the planning board will have to react to, okay, the planning board's going to make the choice. They may have a reaction that says, I don't want to touch this, right? But it's our choice to say, who do we think is the right party to make the choice, right?
Can we frame it for the planning board to get their opinion on that very question?
Sure.
Do they have an opinion as to whether or not it makes sense for them or for us?
We can, we just need to make sure the law does designate someone because you're
Someone.
setting, so whether,
Right.
but we can, either way you phrased it in here, we'll certainly refer it with that question.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Right.
Right, because we've been slowly kind of migrating things away from council.
Special permits, the
Right.
linkage district, correct.
And they may view this as sort of an appropriate delegation. They may also give us an opinion that says, no, this one's yours, right?
Right.
Right, if you want to go against your own zoning, that's on you.
So how would you like it as written when referred to them? And we will tell them the council had a discussion and would like their opinion as to which agency.
I don't find it this type of thing particularly burdensome. It doesn't come up very often, and I'm happy to weigh in on public benefits.
All right, so why don't we just leave it as it is, and then we'll ask them their opinion either way. So we'll collect a piece of opinion, because, they may have a view, and it may affect our opinions.
Very good. And the public hearing will be as drafted, and you may hear comments as well, given this discussion.
Okay.
Good, so you would be adopting a resolution tonight referring this to the planning board, city and county, and scheduling the public hearing for the 19th.
Okay.
And is this I think the next planning board meeting, at least the city one, is the 13th? Is the idea that hopefully this can make that meeting before our public hearing?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. Everybody good with that? Again, we're just doing the referrals, right?
Yep.
And setting it up as a proposal. Okay. I think that's it for workshop. And do we want to take 2 minutes and then start up at, say, 1:15 on that clock? So make it 20 past for real? Or do we want